We're with Leroy Smith, the Executive Director of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum. And Leroy, wanted to talk to you about a variety of topics regarding wrestling and the Hall of Fame. You're here in Colorado Springs this week for the Dave Schultz High School Excellence Training Camp. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about how this program got started and tell us why the Hall of Fame is so dedicated to putting together this project for our top high school scholar athletes.
Well, we were studying the aspect of our mission statement that says inspire future generations. Our mission is to preserve and to recognize and to inspire. And that piece of it, the inspiration piece of it, seemed like a natural process to try and focus on the youth. And so it was really a natural for us to link with USA Wrestling and try and utilize the Olympic Training Center. And so Rich Bender was more than willing to accommodate the program for this idea. And so we were able to create a camp and get funding from a grant and support these the best of the best from our high schools who are going into college and bring them to the Colorado Springs, the Olympic Training Center, and get them inspired by the dream of the Olympic dream. And so not only do we want to do that, but here with this camp, but we also want to provide them a very rich experience by bringing in former Hall of Fame members as part of the program. And we have a wonderful staff of national team coaches that are here, and your Olympic Training Center or the USOC staff members who also are presenters in this 2 full days of instruction, if you will, programming. There's a lot of fun built into it too. They get to do a hike, if you want to call hiking Pikes Peak fun, but that's on the program as well. So it really gives them a chance to get a feel, plant a seed for the Olympic dream. It's the greatest achievement that a wrestler can aspire to, besides college wrestling in the sport, and that's what we represent. We represent as a Hall of Fame excellence, and we want to inspire future generations. So this program has been a real win-win for everyone, including the young people, because they are just extremely excited when they leave this experience, not really realizing quite what it's going to be when they get here. Many of them have never been here, so it's a wonderful, uplifting atmosphere, environment, being at the Olympic Training Center. So they're excited about that, but the curriculum and the programming is exceptional.
Have you gotten some very positive feedback in the other years from the athletes that have come out and taken advantage? I mean, I know you also do leadership training and other, besides technique instruction and wrestling teaching that they're able to get out of this week.
Yes, we've had a number, everyone who's ever attended this is just goes and tells everyone that will listen to them about the experience, because they're really walking on high altitude when they leave this place, and that's what we want. It's not a training camp. It's a chance to bring them together to acknowledge the contributions and balance they have in their lives as being the top wrestlers, the top students, and they all have demonstrated a commitment to civic and community minded service. So they really are future leaders, and we want to motivate them to continue in those next steps that as they go into college with that same mind frame and become future leaders for the sport.
Now, a few weeks ago, we had the Hall of Fame Honors Weekend down in Stillwater. We had a very strong group of inductees this year. It was a marvelous weekend. It seemed like many of the distinguished members this year not only were great wrestlers, but had spectacular careers off the mat in their careers. Could you talk a little bit about the experience that you had this weekend and some of the distinguished members that were part of the program?
Sure, be glad to. It was, as you mentioned, the 4 distinguished members. Pete Blair went on, had a great career in the Navy and was Olympic team captain and Olympic bronze medalist. He also was a commander in the Navy. He went on to an exceptionally successful career after his competition days. And after he finished his commander service, he went in as a vice president of marketing for a number of companies, Fortune 500 company, and Ed Eichelberger had an exceptional career at Lehigh University, and then went on and got his master's and doctorate degree from Princeton University, and went to work for IBM, became a VP for IBM, and founded 25 patents for the company. Just extraordinary success. Les Gutches, one of our more recent wrestlers, who is now into banking, has a career as a loan officer in banking, in Corvallis, Oregon, where he went to college at Oregon State. And also Dennis Kozlowski had the great career in Greco-Roman, winning 2 Olympic medals, the first ever to do that as a Greco-Roman Olympian. And of course, Dr. Dennis Kozlowski is a chiropractor and has a very successful practice in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and also is the team chiropractor for the Minnesota Vikings. So, you know, they really represent, when you look at how many wrestlers there are in the United States, and only 4 get inducted per year, that is just a fraction of the wrestlers. And they have to be extremely successful to have achieved this merit. And as it should be. This is the Hall of Fame. And these are our greatest legends. It just so happens that this group didn't continue in the sport, which is unusual. Usually we have some coaches who coach, and I'm sure we will have in the future several coaches. But this class, they didn't stay in the sport. They transitioned out, and they were a great success. And that is also one of the attributes of the sport, in that I think as they all say, it makes a difference in their life in every aspect.
Were there any special highlights this week at the Hall of Fame? Anything that was really in your mind went very well?
Well, it was it went extraordinarily well this year. We had good weather, and I think probably the highlight for me was working on incorporating the video into the honorees enshrinement ceremony, and that went exceptionally well. Our videos that Dr. Dave Bennett put together for the Saturday evening enshrinement program was exceptional. It allowed us to present the honorees in a very entertaining way. It allowed them to be comfortable. They didn't have to come to the induction ceremony worrying about their speech the whole weekend. And so they were more relaxed, which is what it's all about. It's about them. And yet we have something on video that we'll be able to preserve for infinity and present to those who on our website and at the Hall of Fame for our visitors when they want to pull up those distinguished members or those honorees that we honored in every category this year.
Why do you think the Hall of Fame Honors Weekend is such a highlight of the wrestling community every year? I mean, why should somebody try to take the time and come down for Honors Weekend?
Well, because it really is the best of the best. It is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, when you look at the percentages of someone being able to get into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, as it should be, it's very difficult. It's .0 something, and for that alone, these are our history makers. These are our legacy makers. But it's you can't get a sense of Honors Weekend. You can't feel the passion and the emotion that is there in each of the honorees unless you really get a sense of it in person. And I think that's very rewarding for our guest.
Now, Hall of Fame has a special role within wrestling, preserving the history and honoring our legends. But how does the Hall of Fame receive resources in order to fulfill this mission? How can you put this all together for the sport?
Well, obviously the financial aspect of it is very challenging, and it requires, majority of our funding comes from individuals out there in the wrestling world. We have a wonderful board, a volunteer board, who does everything they can to help broaden awareness for our sport. And but individuals, and we have a few corporations that back and support the Hall of Fame. We get some grants. We work hard at submitting grants to foundations and as well as corporations. And we also, we try to inform people that it's a good investment from an estate or a legacy gift. So leave something behind when they go, and many of them do, to the Hall of Fame, because it is something that perpetuates our history. In addition to that, we have yet to form a membership program for the Hall of Fame, and we're going to be doing that in the coming months. Probably not until January of 2010 will the Hall of Fame present its first membership program. And it will be a way for anyone, youth to seniors, citizens who can, by being a member, can contribute in some way to the viability of the Hall of Fame.
So Leroy, what do you feel are the keys for the Hall of Fame being able to sustain and advance its mission within wrestling? What has to go right for the Hall of Fame to do its work?
Well, we have to find a way. We're always working on how we can be more relevant to the wrestling community. So we listen very well to the needs of the wrestling community. However, our 501(c) is as a nonprofit organization. We are here to preserve the history of the sport, to recognize extraordinary individual achievements, and to inspire future generations. So our programming that helps connect people and broaden awareness for our sport and helps tell the story of our legacy makers, those are the keys to that programming is the key to helping the Hall of Fame advance its mission and becoming more viable in the community and helping the sport grow as well.
Now, in recent years, the Hall's done a tremendous job with the educational outreach programs. A year ago, they had an honoring program for African Americans within wrestling, and this year, the Glory Beyond the Sport focused on wrestling in the military. How successful are these programs in expanding our public knowledge of wrestling, and how were they received when the Hall of Fame brought this information out to the public?
They've been received extraordinarily well. They do help broaden awareness for the sport, because they tend to talk about peoples and the impact wrestling and wrestlers have had on society at large, such as our African Americans. We are a very diverse sport. We want to celebrate our diversity and inclusion in the sport. We'll continue down that road with other ethnicities that we celebrate in wrestling, such as Native Americans, which we're looking to do in the next year, but Hispanics and Asians. And we're a very multicultural sport, and we want to celebrate that diversity and inclusion. The military was received extraordinarily well as you can imagine, because we have such a long history. We go back to ancient times with the military and wrestling. Soldiering and hand-to-hand combat were naturals, part of evolution. And so we see that even today with so many of our wrestlers, and especially the military wanting to recruit in the world of wrestling, because they do recognize those traits are fit very well with their core values. And so that was received very well and will continue. And some of these exhibits, they in our educational outreach programming, goes on and becomes a permanent part of the Hall of Fame. We create permanent exhibits because they do have so much connection. So it allows us to connect a lot of people to the sport and to the Hall of Fame. So it's very important, and I think that as we look forward, we have so many topics that we can build upon, such as Native Americans that we're looking at doing here in the future relative to our diversity and inclusion theme. But we also have family ties that we're looking at incorporating in as an educational outreach exhibit, and really trying to tell that story through the perspective of a female, be it the family mother or a sister in some cases, because the mother may not be living, of those family ties, brothers, fathers and son combinations. Wrestling has a family value aspect to it. It is family friendly. And we want the women telling that story for us. So we're going to make some advocates out of some women who might generate some interest across their own sector, if you will.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the state chapters program. It's effectively honored wrestling leaders at a local level, and it's something in which people can have their lifetime achievement recognized by the Hall of Fame right in the state where they live and where they do their wrestling work. How is the program going now, and why has it been so successful and well received?
Well, it is well received in many states. In some states, I don't think they quite understand it, but it's an exceptional platform for us to, we create a showcase, a platform like no other in the sport. And it's what we're so enthusiastic and passionate about is that it drills down into the local levels. It allows our grassroots to celebrate those contributions that people have made to the sport at the grassroots level. And that's extremely important, because you don't see that happening at our national program. We don't really, national Hall of Fames don't drill down into the local levels. And that's what this program does. So it really broadens awareness for the sport, and it helps us capture and tell those stories within each state at the local level. So we've got some strategic planning that we've done on our state chapter program that will help enrich and grow that program even more in the coming years. We're going on to an online registration where people can sign up on banquets online. We're going to be able to present to them some support for public relations relative to getting the word out on the honorees and their banquets. So we're real excited about continuing to feed that program and make it more viable. And hopefully people will embrace it for what it is. It's an opportunity to celebrate our heritage at the local levels.
Could you tell me a little bit about any plans that are being made for either the improvement or expansion of the Hall of Fame facility?
Well, we've been, for a number of years, we've been analyzing our renovation needs, and we're in the process. The Board of Governors is in the process of trying to adopt a plan to renovate our current location and space. So we are proceeding with that. We're running out of space, but the big key there is not so much about space. but presenting and putting together a storyline throughout the Hall of Fame on the sport, and in doing so incorporating a lot of technology to help tell that story. So that will be the main thrust in the coming years, to generate the financial support to help us renovate our Hall of Fame so that we can be the showcase for the sport, the crown jewel, as we like to say, of wrestling.
Could you explain a little bit about the strategic planning process that the Hall of Fame has begun, and what kind of goals that process has for the Hall of Fame?
Well, they are the keys to sustaining the Hall of Fame and to our mission. We've been engaged in a strategic planning process over the last several months. Our Board of Governors has. And we've adopted a set of goals, approximately 7 overall goals, and then under each of those goals are action items that we're going to be working on that we think we can achieve over the next 3 years. And that gives us focus, and it allows us to take the resources that we do have and focus them on a specific set of goals that will help advance our mission. And we're real excited about those. They cover all sectors, from the outreach to the visitor experience to the financing of the organization, to our renovation. So we have about everything that you could think of incorporated in the strategic plan that will guide our steps going forward over the next several years.
Now, how can people who enjoy wrestling help the Hall of Fame to continue to grow and prosper? What can the common wrestling coach or fan or parent do to be part of the process?
Well, I would like to think support our banquets. Attend our banquets that we have at the state levels. And it's not just about being present. It's about giving feedback also. Tell us what you would like to see. We have some pretty big ears. They may be a little cauliflowered, but we do like to. Part of our core values are to listen to our public and respond to that public, and we're here for wrestling. We were created to preserve the history of the sport and to inspire future generations. So we need to know what we need to be as well, and that's what our strategic planning process has really done. It's gone out and surveyed people to get their input. But attending our programs and as we produce educational materials, outreach materials, participating in our exhibits. I really think that you can't go to one of our exhibits and get some materials from those exhibits and spread them out and share them around, and people will then realize what kind of impact wrestling has, not only on the individuals and the great legends of our sport, but society at large.
And of course, you have an open invitation for anyone to come down to Stillwater and actually
go
through there. I mean, that's
right, Gary. Right? And that's a big part of our strategic plan and our renovation is to certainly, we want people in there at least once in their lifetime, if not occasionally, visit Stillwater, because you won't be disappointed. But we also understand that everybody can't, and that's why we have our outreach program. We're going to take our exhibits out to people, out to our major events. So, but I promise you won't be disappointed if you do visit Stillwater, and every good wrestling fan and participant should do that at least once in their lifetime.
Well, Leroy Smith, thank you for your time, and good luck with the Hall of Fame's project and this week's Dave Schultz High School Excellence Camp. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much.